upgrade their system or make any more upgrades to their house. And no, I'm trying to think of one specific word. Not improvements, not environmental. Efficiency. That should be the word that I don't forget. So any efficiency improvements, you can get in touch with Mike and he can come in and do an official assessment if Sherry and I are busy in our real estate, and he can't assist at that time. But in the meantime, we can answer questions.
Shall we ask if you guys can move the mic closer? I don't think.
Aaron just did.
Oh, okay.
Is that better?
Or are we too far away?
So just make sure you're speaking up.
I've never done this.
Shelley, did that help? Us moving? No.
Maybe hold it.
Well, it's right in front of us. I don't know how to make that.
Did you hear anything we said?
That sounds better. Your voice is a little louder.
Okay.
Okay, so Mike, when you're talking, we're just gonna get you to hover in here.
Not a problem.
All right, so let's pass the floor over to Mike and thank you so much for coming in. Thanks, Mike.
Hello. I am familiar with working with Zoom. We use it all the time. So, and we hate it and we love it. But when we're talking about heating systems in homes, whether we're talking about condos, standalones, townhouses, duplexes, it really doesn't matter. There's only a few types of heating systems on the marketplace that are common in Nova Scotia. You've got your electric, baseboard or radiant heaters. You've got your oil or combustible, either hot air or hot water systems. And those are really about the only things that you run across. And of course, the only reason that people are concerned about their heating systems is because they're ridiculously expensive to operate and it's only going to get worse. And I mean a lot worse. So everybody is concerned about it. Now, there's not a whole lot we can do with a combustible hot water system because it's baseboards. So there's really isn't an efficient upgrade for a baseboard type of liquid or hot water system, other than just going mini splits on the walls throughout the home. Okay. When we are dealing with electric radiators, well, that's easier because they've got all kinds of power in the house already. We can slam in a few ductless systems throughout the home. We can eliminate a bunch of radiators, Bob's your uncle, away you go, and we can get that done. When we're talking about duct dead systems, as long as the ductwork is satisfactory to carry the airflow required by the heat pump, it's usually a very simple install. Okay. Yes, it's a lot of work, but believe it or not, most ducted systems, we can actually get the old stuff out and the new stuff in and have them operating literally within one day. Okay. We may have to go back the second day just to do some tweaking, but generally it's a one-day deal. Now, what you are also getting hit with, and I know this, is how much is it going to cost? And are there going to be government grants and rebates?
100%.
Okay. And I know these are the common questions and I deal with them literally every single day. And it is about the most complicated, simple answer I can talk about because I have no idea what it's going to cost until we actually see the home.
Yeah.
Because every home is different. It's just like your retail cost when you're selling homes. What's the average cost of a home? How the hell do you know? You haven't seen it yet. Okay. Is it on the water? Is it not on the water? Is it 1,000 square feet? Is it 3,000 square feet? Is it a piece of junk? Is it a high-end home? How much does a home cost? Good question. Same thing with heat pumps. I don't know until we actually understand a little bit more about the home. But, rule of thumb, if we're talking about your standard bungalow and we're going to put in a full ducted system, oil out, which you run into a lot. If we don't have to do a panel upgrade, we're going to get them done for well under 20 grand. Okay. Now, just for conversation. Now, grants and rebates. There are multiple programs in play right now, and they keep changing literally every month. So you need a scorecard to keep track. However, there are two main programs, Greener Homes and Efficiency Nova Scotia. Okay, thankfully here in Nova Scotia, Efficiency Nova Scotia actually administers the Greener Home program. So we don't have to deal with multiple levels of government. Okay, which actually, we're one of the only provinces that do it that way, which actually makes it easier for us. But the bottom line is that there are grants and rebates from Greener Homes that will run between $2,500 and $5,000, depending upon the systems that you put in. And then there are rebates from Efficiency Nova Scotia that will range from $200 to $500 per ton of system installed. Now, for those of you that don't understand what a ton is, 12,000 BTUs is considered 1 ton. And your average mini split head, most of them are 12,000 or 1 ton. Okay, but there's all different sizes. There's also some other grants and rebates available for conversion from oil hot water to electric hot water. There's all kinds of median and low income programs as well. There is also what they call an off oil program, which is administered by Greener Homes, which could see an additional $5,000 come down the pipe. And please understand there's two income related programs. One is called median income and one is low income. Now, I doubt as real estate agents, you're going to get too involved with the low income because they're probably not in the market to shop houses. However, the median income, you probably are going to run it because by my standards and by what we think of here in Nova Scotia, median income is a pretty broad range. You know, you can be dealing with incomes of $100,000 in Nova Scotia, and that's still going to qualify for median income. So you're going to run into it.
Is that per household or per person?
Per household income after tax. Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's an after-tax number. All right, so it raises the gross threshold
Yeah,
substantially.
truly does.
Yeah, so you could be having, you know, 2 adults and their elderly mother living in the home. Just get the notice of assessments, add them all up, and if you're under that level, guess what? Bob's your uncle, and away you go, and we can potentially qualify for an extra $5,000. So now all of a sudden, we're talking about potentially $5,000 for Greener Home for the update itself, another $5,000, which could go towards a panel upgrade, and maybe another $1,500 from Efficiency Nova Scotia for putting in the install. So you could very easily be looking at, you know, $11,500, $12,000 in the form of grants and rebates. Yeah, so it's a lot of money.
There are different rebates for different systems, so like
Yes.
versus a mini split versus like a ducted system,
Yes.
what would that?
Well, again, Greener Homes does not really differentiate. Greener Homes, if you're putting in a ductless mini split system and you put in 1 pump, 2 heads, for instance, you know, 1 pump is connected to 2 heads, you're automatically going to qualify for $2,500. If you put in 1 pump, 3 heads, or, you know, 1 pump with 2 heads and then another pump with 1 head to get at the other end of the property, you're automatically going to qualify for $5,000. Okay.
So what do you need to qualify, just the receipt of purchasing each pump?
No, it's a little more complicated than that. Okay, and this is the next step. Greener Homes, because Greener Homes is actually a natural resources program. So it's funded by the feds, administered through Efficiency Nova Scotia. In order to qualify for any, and I mean any, Greener Homes money, you have to first get a home energy assessment completed on your home before install. Not before you buy, but before you actually do the work.
And is there a cost to that? And
Yes.
how far out are they in booking?
Okay, two very good questions. First off, it's a couple of $100, so it's not expensive.
200 bucks.
Yep, $200. And the minute you do one, let me back up a little bit. Let's talk about the home energy assessment. The home energy assessment, which is a $200, there's 6 or 7 companies that are listed on Efficiency Nova Scotia's website that are approved to do that work. Some of them are really good, some of them are a pain in the ass. But they all will provide you with a relatively consistent report. And it will give you an energy snapshot of your home. And I mean everything, from the tip of the roof to the foundation. Okay? Doors, windows, air leakage, heating systems, absolutely everything when it comes to energy consumption in your home. So it's a really nice document for a homeowner to have because it allows them to have a snapshot of where they should be spending their money and where the biggest bang is. Okay, so it's a really nifty document. Now, once that is in place, that homeowner will automatically be qualified for all of the Greener Homes programs. They need to do nothing else.
That's it, just get the assessment.
Get the assessment done.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so it's relatively simple. Now, as far as how far out they are, some companies, maybe 2 months, some companies, maybe more. I would suggest to you that there are a few companies that respond really quickly. We have a couple of relationships, mainly with HomeSol. And I typically can get home assessments done within 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, and I will tell you, as far as an install is concerned, if I sold a system today, the odds of me being able to install it inside 2 weeks is slim to 0. I mean, we may have 30 install crews running all over this province, but they're booked.
Right, right.
You know, we usually tell people on systems that we're installing, if you're doing a ductless system, I will absolutely have you installed probably inside 3 weeks, business weeks. If you're looking at ducted systems, that takes a little more. But, you know,
That's
6.
dependent on the upgrade to the panel as well.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. You know, if we're talking about upgrades to panels, if this is a home that's in Dartmouth, count on 2 to 3 months. If it's in Halifax, I could probably get you done in 6 weeks. If you're in rural Nova Scotia, I might be able to get you done in a month. And this is entirely a function of Nova Scotia Power. Has nothing to do with us. Nova Scotia Power dictates the timelines, and Dartmouth is always a disaster. Always.
Good to know.
Yeah, and I talk to, 15 or 20 different electricians all the time, and we try and find out why. I never get an answer.
The dark side.
They don't know. It just is. It just is. And a lot of times, if power is a major issue in the home, obviously getting that panel upgraded may dictate the timeline on doing the heat upgrade as well. Because there's no point in us spending a whole bunch of time and effort putting in systems that can't be turned on. So it's a little bit of a juggling act. And at any given time, personally, I probably have maybe 15 ducted deals waiting for panel upgrades, you know, before we actually book them. That's pretty normal. It is.
So if a client wanted to get a ducted system,
Yep.
but they know they need to get the panel upgrade simply because of resources in the house, it's
Yep.
part of their plan anyway, would they be advisable to request that upgrade on their own or to have
They can.
a trained person do it?
They can. They have to hire a red seal electrician anyways. Whether they hire one of mine or they hire their own is somewhat irrelevant. And they can do the electrical upgrades at any time because the electrical upgrades will have nothing to do with the grants or rebates. Okay, so even if they haven't had their home energy assessment done, go ahead, get your panel upgraded. Because that's not a heating system upgrade, so it won't impact your greener homes deal at all.
But they still have to wait for Nova Scotia Power to get the blessing before they can do the
Well,
upgrade.
yeah, the problem with Nova Scotia Power is it's a bit of a process. If I want to upgrade a panel in my home right now, the first thing that has to happen is we contact Nova Scotia Power and request what is called a scope. Scope is step one. I requested a scope for a home in Dartmouth through one of my electricians exactly 2 weeks ago yesterday. We finally got the response from Nova Scotia Power in Dartmouth that they're gonna do the scope on May 9th. I guess that's today, isn't it?
That's today.
Okay. Now, so it took 2 weeks just to get them to acknowledge and do the scope. And the scope is no more complicated than a truck and a guy arriving at the home, stopping, getting out, looking at the pole, walking to the house, looking at the connection to the house, making a couple of notes and driving away.
Oh, my goodness.
That is a scope. They are checking the connection between the pole and the home for what they have for equipment on site.
Do you have to do this anytime you upgrade a panel?
Yes,
Even like if I want to upgrade a panel next week, my electrician does this?
Not if you wanted to, like, if you had a fuse panel and you just wanted to
Upgrade to the new one?
upgrade to.
yeah, you could go
That would
panel
be
to
fine.
panel.
Okay,
You just can't move from a 100 to a 200.
okay, I never knew that.
What
Yeah.
if somebody has a 125?
And they want to go to a 125,
They
they
want to
can,
go to a 200.
then we're back to square one again. We have to do the scope and all the rest of it. But, so once the scope is done, then they enter that into the computer, and then in a couple of days, the electrician can call and get the permit pulled from Nova Scotia Power, and they will give you a tentative date for the actual install or the upgrade. So it's all on Nova Scotia Power. And that is a tentative date that may change and probably will in the winter. And if it gets canceled today, it doesn't get put on tomorrow.
Goes right to the
You go to
bottom
end
of
of
the
list
friggin'
it.
bottom.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, one snowstorm.
I had one customer this winter. He got canceled 3 times.
And he froze to death.
He was 4 months. He was 4 months from his original date before he got it finished.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, they weren't without heat, and we had heat in there, but it was a very frustrating experience for the customer.
No, wow.
And there's nobody to call and complain about. Nobody, completely,
So best advice, get it done this spring, summer, and fall.
absolutely,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely, because wintertime bookings are not very reliable. Anyway, but panel upgrades, in order to be able to carry this additional electrical load is very common. Not so bad if you're just adding one pump with a couple of heads, that's not a big deal. But we get into some of these places where we're installing, pulling out an oil furnace and we're pulling out an oil hot water tank. And all of a sudden, we need a 30 amp 2-pole for the hot water tank. We need a 45 amp 2-pole for the heat pump. And because we're going full ducted, I also need another 55 or 60 amp
What is
to
it? Like the 2-pole, what is that?
240 volt.
Of the mini split or the, like of
Well,
the
a ducted,
panel?
yeah,
or the-
what we have to connect the the system in the panel.
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
this is the actual breakers in the panel. Okay, so you have to have capacity.
Got it.
Okay, and a lot of times homes are over capacity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Like if you plug in the area heater and then turn on your hair
Yeah.
dryer and they blow.
yeah, I'm doing the Wolfville Baptist Church right now. And the Wolfville Baptist Church had a 200 amp panel. We went in there, we looked at it, we figured that they were overloaded by at least 40%,
Oh, wow.
which is not that uncommon in these community halls, churches, et cetera, that have been administered by boards of directors that change every 2 years, and they just add this, and they add this, and they add this. And before you know it, they have no idea where they're at. Well, we not only couldn't put in our systems, our proposal, by upgrading them to 400 amps, we actually had to go to 600 amps.
Oh, my goodness.
That's how badly overloaded they were in order to get our systems in. So a simple $5,000 panel upgrade turned into a $15,000 job just for the electrical.
And doesn't Nova Scotia Power have to come in off, the line has to come in stronger?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Scope.
That's the scope.
Yep.
after the
Yeah,
scope.
and that's one of the reasons why they do the scope. And, when you're talking about big systems, well, now all of a sudden, guess what? That transformer that they have up on the pole has to be replaced.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so,
They have to pay for that.
no, that's Nova Scotia Power's problem.
Right.
Okay, but it does bring in a whole bunch of questions that quite often have to get asked and resolved. Okay,
Well, just understand that there's a process on the other end.
oh, yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it is. And the one thing that I always tell customers, and I tell it religiously, is we're involving Nova Scotia Power in the solution here. So be patient. You're going to get frustrated. I know it. Take a pill and relax. Okay, the timeline that we were thinking we're working with is a best guess. So just hang on. Now, I don't want to confuse this too much, but I also want to just touch on the fact that I know you do some corporate stuff as well. There are also in Nova Scotia heating grants and rebates available for businesses as well. Businesses, community halls, nonprofits, churches, etc. Okay, I don't know how much you get involved in that, but it's there. So I mean, your small standalone business, if they don't have heat pumps, that can be corrected.
Mike, I'll just take a second here to say that this is more of like in real estate, this is to benefit, this is information that would benefit anyone who's looking to have a good conversation with their leads. So if you are someone who goes to church, this is information that you can take
Yeah.
to the person who's running the church and say, listen, have you ever thought about
Converting it.
converting it? And
Sure.
there's rebates and all of this stuff.
Yep.
In real estate, it would be a way to help.
Yeah,
your
it's
community.
another networking avenue
Yeah,
for you.
exactly.
It is. I will tell you that about 2 years ago, I started working on the commercial side of the business. I've reached the point right now where that's virtually all I do. Because it's a whole new world. You're no longer talking about one mini split or two mini splits. You're talking about big systems. I have no idea how many churches I've done throughout the province, but it's a bunch of them.
I can't imagine the money that they must save once they swap.
Well, it's huge,
Yeah.
but it's also a big deal for us because instead of having, 2 or 3 guys arrive at a house and disappear 5 hours later, they may be there for a week and a half,
Yeah.
doing the install because it's,
Huge.
well, I mean, Wolfville Baptist Church, good example. We're going to be there for 2 weeks. And mostly because that church is bloody made of stone. So we have to core drill everything. I think at last count, we'd already gone through 6 $150 drill bits.
No doubt.
Wow.
Little things like this, that's all part of it. But, your homeowners need to know that there is all kinds of grants and rebates out there. They start looking, they're going to get confused. I guarantee it. They're going to throw up their hands and say, what the hell do I do with this? Because our own salespeople do that. And they work with it every day. And that's why the company keeps an old fart like me around, to just as a resource. What do I do with this? Okay, here's what you do. Okay, thanks, Mike. See ya.
So he has to.
It's nice to have the partnership. So like to be able to call you as a resource. or to have
Absolutely.
You come by the home. So I guess I'd have to ask is, you're highly respected amongst KW, obviously. Company. I see your ads
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like they're always on TV.
Yep.
So Mike, what would make you different than the competition? Like what separates Scotia HVAC from others?
You mean other than my charming demeanor and
Other
good looks?
than your charming.
The simple fact of the matter is that there are lots of competent companies out there selling good equipment. There are, okay? Scotia HVAC has been around as long as most of them. We are one of the biggest, absolutely. 24/7 service lines that actually get answered by people
Okay, that's huge.
is one big one. You know, we have an A+ rating with Better Business Bureau and have had it for years, okay, and held it. We are not married to one brand or another, okay? Now, let's just touch on that issue for a minute. There's lots of good brands out there, lots. But the vast majority of the information that John Q. Citizen has is dominated by what they see on the interweb,
Absolutely.
okay? Or from a family member who bought a heat pump 15 years ago, and therefore this brand is the best,
Everyone's a special.
okay? And I hear that literally every single day. Well, I got news for you. That Fujitsu that they bought 15 years ago has absolutely zero to do with the Fujitsu you buy today, okay? Not a thing. The fact of the matter is that when we're talking about ductless systems, there are exactly 2 manufacturers of mini split systems or ductless systems in the entire world, regardless of brand name. And the 2 companies that make them are named Midea and Gree. And both of those companies have over 500,000 employees each. So they're massive companies. Asia. I'm not going to nail it down any further than that because they have manufacturing facilities literally everywhere in Asia. Okay, so regardless of brand name, whether we're talking about, well, Govair, Lennox, Fujitsu, Mitsubishi, I don't care. They're all made by those 2 companies. Okay, so the next part of this equation is I'm dominated by ads out of the States, and I'm always being told about this high SEER number. And SEER. That's the big number that's you see on all the ads and on the interweb. Got to have a machine with a high SEER. I don't give a flying what the SEER number is. Couldn't care less.
What spelling was it?
SEER. It's an acronym. And it really defines how efficient the machine is in air conditioning.
Oh.
That is it. It has no relationship to the heating efficiency. The acronym that I'm interested in is HSPF, Heating Season Performance Factor. And that's really the only number I care about. Because we are in Canada. We don't live in Florida.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that acronym? SS what?
HSPF, Heating Season Performance Factor. Okay, that is the only
you.
real statistic or number that I'm really interested in. Because we're not in Florida. It doesn't hit 130 degrees. I don't care whether the machine is efficient in air conditioning or not, because it does not get hot enough here for us to take advantage of a high SEER number.
Like Asia.
Like Asia, Florida, Texas. So guess what? There's all kinds of pumps out there with really good cold weather performance. And that now takes us down to the next short conversation about brands. There are certain brands on the marketplace that specialize in cold weather brands. They're not marketed in Florida. You know, ACD, Direct Air, Novair. There's a whole bunch of brands, and they specialize mostly in pumps that are designed for a cold climate. and they got some really good pumps. Okay, really good. So, I never get hung up on brand names, because there's lots of good ones out there. Some are known to be more reliable than others, and we can deal with that. But there is lots of choice when we're talking about heat pumps, whether we're talking about ductless systems or duct dead systems. There's always going to be something that's going to work.
What do you prefer?
I like the efficiency of the ductless systems. Ductless systems are going to be more efficient than duct dead systems. But there's a big but. Ductless systems cannot and will never cover 100% of the home. Okay, so there's always a trade-off. There's really good duct dead systems, and the big advantage is, of course, if the ductwork is suitable in the home and it goes everywhere, it's a one pump solution. It's instant. You're done. You're finished. Okay. Where ductless systems means I may have to put multiple heads through the building. Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my next question. You said about $20,000 to $25,000 for your ducted
Sure.
system, which is roughly the same price as an oil furnace, right? And what's do they last about the same, about that 20 to 25 year mark as oil? And that's going to take me to my second question after that.
Okay. If you had asked me that question 5 years ago, I probably would have given you a much different answer. But I'm really very, very confident to suggest to you that you are, with a ducted system or with a ductless system, you are talking about something with a reliability of 15 and plus years. But what has been happening most recently is that people are getting rid of their 15-year-old systems and upgrading to the newer systems, not because the machinery has failed, but because the efficiency has improved enough that it makes sense to do it. Okay? And 20 years ago, when mini splits first hit the market here, they weren't built for our climate. You go to any landfill that recycles metal, and you will see mountains of rusty mini splits, waiting to be scavenged. And they all look, and they're all rusty because they just weren't built for our climate. Nowadays, during the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you could go to an install with a mini split, you can't find a spot of rust on it. None. Because they figured out that there's some climates that are particularly harsh, and they just dealt with it.
And so that you kind of answered, but takes me to my second question, is those mini splits.
Yep.
I'm finding what a lot of clients are asking about is 10 years. The motors are starting to go, they're noisy on the inside, the outside.
Yep.
Some are just failing.
Yep.
So what you're saying is the new technology has come up. I mean, that's a big price. After 10 years, all of a sudden something failed that you spent $5,000 to $10,000 on and
Yeah.
it failed.
Yeah, it is.
That's,
It is. It is a big nut. I wouldn't tell you this if I didn't believe it. I do honestly believe that the technology that they've been putting in these machines for the past, 5, 6, 7 years has been much better than it was 10 years ago. Much better, both from an efficiency and a build quality, and actually being designed for our climate. And I honestly believe that because I see evidence of it every single day when I'm out on the road, and I look at the equipment that has, sitting out in the open, and it's been there for 8 years, and there's not a mark on it. Now, as far as reliability, sure, it's mechanical. A 10-year-old car is not as technically as reliable as a 5-year-old car, and they're getting better at building these things all the time. And I say this one line to customers all the time. Hyundai entered the automotive market in North America, in about 1995. Would anybody have bought a Hyundai in 1995? And the answer is no from everybody. But yet today, would you put a Hyundai on your shopping list? And the answer is going to be yes. They have the highest build quality of virtually any manufacturer in the world. Things change. It's ever changing.
So what about like warranties and stuff? So like is there options?
Yes.
3, 10,
There's always options. Virtually every manufacturer on the marketplace today is waiving a warranty for 10 years,
okay, 'cause
Flat.
that would be a big deal for somebody knowing,
except that it doesn't tell you the whole story.
right?
Okay? They wave a big flag and they make a big deal about saying, 10-year warranty. Until you go down there to the little asterisk that says compressor and parts only. Okay? I don't care what they put on it for the compressor and parts. I couldn't care less. Parts are cheap. They're always going to be cheap. They will always be cheap. Labor is the thing that's going to kill you every single time. Okay? Personally, I have not sold a heat pump without 10 years parts, 10 years compressor, and 10 years labor in more than 4 years. I cover everything. And I just tell my customers, I'm covering everything. You don't have an option if you're dealing with me. But the manufacturers do not provide that labor coverage. I put it on there. Yes,
Through Scotia.
I do not tell the customers, I don't elaborate the detail. I just tell them I'm putting it on.
That's great. Sure.
They don't have an option.
No, that's wonderful for everybody.
But it's stress-free shopping at that point. They know that no matter what's going on, it's covered.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, to be brutally honest, are the manufacturers playing some games on their warranties? Yeah, sure. They always are. They do it, they're gonna do it all the time. They're gonna try and, one of their jobs is to wiggle out of coverage. It's they've got whole teams of people their entire function is trying to wiggle out of coverage. But we can only react to what we know today and what we're anticipating, not to what we don't know. And there's changes in this industry coming constantly. Probably one of the biggest changes we're going to see probably in the next couple of years, there is going to be a wholesale change on the gas that the systems are operating on. We're all familiar with the old R22 gas, Freon, that was harmful for the environment and all the rest of that. Well, they outlawed that. How old am I? 14 years ago, maybe? And the whole industry switched to the A10 or A410A gas, which is just another form of Freon, but it's not harmful to the ozone. Well, there's now another gas that's coming on, and that's going to be a wholesale switch. So there's going to be a transition. We are going to see advances in the equipment, probably what they call VFR equipment, that is going to allow you to have one compressor, 2 heads on different levels, and you could actually get heat out of one and cool out of the other head.
That's,
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
Yeah, well, that technology is on the market now. It's in its infancies. It's ridiculously expensive. All the bugs have not been worked out. Okay, so I'm not about to put it in my sales catalog. But it's coming. It is coming. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about in-floor heating?
Sure.
Like high-tech, geothermal?
Geothermal, sure.
A little bit about that.
Sure. Okay. When we talk about in-floor radiant types of heat sources, there's typically only 2 types of in-floor, either electric or hydronic. Okay, and hydronic is any liquid that is running through it. Very efficient systems. I really like electric heat in-floor in bathrooms. I really like it in bathrooms. I think it's a simple solution that's elegant. And every high-end home should absolutely have a heated floor and bathroom. Okay, that's a no-brainer. Hydronic systems or in-floor, when it's in concrete, works really well. Okay,
Like on a slab.
yeah, slab, yeah. Because there is a thermal component to the concrete that once it warms up, it stays warm. Very efficient. I'm not so much sold on it when they're doing it in a wood structure. Yeah, it works, but you have to continually keep feeding it all the time. Okay, because the wood has no thermal component. Now, heating that substrate or that hydronic side, that's where it gets a little dicey. That is what you call a hydronic system. And there's a whole bunch of different options. You can use oil, you can use propane, you can use geothermal. There's even new air to water heat pumps that are on the market. Okay, but none of them have been approved under the efficiency by the AHRI or NEAT, whatever the testing wise, or that qualify for any of the grants or rebates. None.
Does that
Okay.
include the geothermal heat pumps?
Yep. Well, geothermal is actually approved,
Okay, so geothermal heat pumps.
Yeah.
are approved.
but it is ridiculously expensive to install.
Ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, well, that was the next part.
Is it?
You better hope it doesn't break.
Oh, the condo.
Yeah, you better hope it doesn't break. Because you're gonna get out your checkbook and you're gonna sell your first kit.
But then to round the whole thing, like, how does that work?
The geothermal, they either are using a grid work outside that is horizontally run or vertically run.
And probably vertical to get below the frost line?
Oh, not just frost line, you're going down a long ways.
Yeah.
You're going down a long
More
ways.
than 8 feet?
Oh, probably more like 150.
Stop, really?
Oh, yeah, because they have to pump fluid down the hole
Right.
to capture the warmth, to pump it back up the hole.
From the Earth's core.
Yeah, well,
Well,
there-
not a-
well,
From the depths of hell.
From the
yes.
other side of the world, like China.
yeah, but
Bring in
this,
the air from China.
yeah, but the simple truth is that there is heat units in the air at minus 25 outside. Okay, they can extract heat units out of minus 25 air.
Yeah,
And by manipulating it in a heat pump, they can get heat into your home. They're doing the same thing with a geothermal. Okay, they pump fluid down, it changes temperature, they pump it back up, and they work on that difference between what they pump down and what they pump back up. Okay, but God forbid if it breaks.
Like into their houses seems ridiculous.
Geothermal had its heyday in the 1980s and 1990s. Okay, and it was very popular because heat pumps had not reached the advances in efficiency that they're at today. Now, I will be honest with you that when I got into this industry about 5 years ago, I'm a bugger for just sitting down, doodling and figuring things out. And that's sort of what I do. And I tried to make a case for geothermal system compared to just a heat pump, like a ducted heat pump. And I was perfectly willing to admit that there was about at the time, probably a 10% at most advantage to the geothermal from an efficiency standpoint. But by the time I factored in all the costs associated with the geothermal and put value on that money at a nominal interest compared to the same lifespan of a ducted system that I could put in and knew exactly what I was going to get out of it. Unless you're going to be in that home for 30 plus years, I can't make a case for geothermal. I can't make the numbers work.
That's fair. Good to know.
Yeah, I just can't make the numbers work at all. Now, there may be a time in the next couple of years that air to water heat pumps are going to meet the criteria required to qualify for the grants and rebates. At that point, I will be very happy to adopt them. Okay, but there's one catch. Geothermal, in floor, air to water, they get you heat, but they do this poor job of air conditioning. Okay, they can cool the floor.
They can stay cooler longer, but eventually you're gonna be pumping it cool.
It doesn't move any air. Okay, and that is the critical component to most heating systems. I mean, that's why, well, just for example, if we had an electric baseboard right there on this wall, right behind me, the thermostat would be on that wall. Okay, every time, it's always on the opposite wall. So you need heat in this room. The thermostat says it's too damn cold. It turns on the baseboard heater. Well, after about 30 seconds, you start to feel a little bit of warmth. After about a minute, it's starting to get hot. And we're starting after a minute or a minute and a half or 2 minutes to develop some convective air, which has to work its way all the way over to there before it turns off that baseboard.
That's not efficient.
So now it's 75 degrees over here and it's 70 degrees there. Okay, and this is what happens all the time with electric heat. You're overheating the outside walls to get to the thermostats to heat the house. Exactly. That's the whole, that's part of where the efficiencies come in with heat pumps. Because the minute you turn on a heat pump, whether we're talking about a ductless unit or a ducted unit, the air turns on. You're moving air quietly, efficiently. That's where a lot of the efficiency pickup is, because you're moving air. And one of the other things about moving air in your home, it's healthier for the home. Because whether we're talking about a ducted system or a mini split or a ductless system, we're going to be filtering 300 to 400% more air in your home than you are right now. So airborne particulate is going to get picked up. So somebody who has asthma or any breathing issues or any sensitivity issues to dust, your quality is going to improve every single time. That's why the Heart Association, Asthma Association, and every other association loves heat pumps. It's not because they're providing efficient heat. They love heat pumps because it's improving the air quality.
How long is it service too? That's another thing. How often do you have to get heat pump service?
Okay, servicing is a bit of a misconception in the heat pump business. And I'll tell you a little secret. There is not a single manufacturer on the marketplace today that requires an annual maintenance of your equipment. Not one. But yet there's all kinds of dealers out there that will tell you on your first meeting that, oh yeah, we're booking you in right now for your annual service next year, to validate your warranty. Horseshit.
Now, their service, is it just cleaning?
Well, here's one of the things that gets involved. Cleaning is something that has to be done. Okay, that's an absolute. With a ducted or with a ductless system, you have these heads up on the walls. Okay, underneath this front flap. Yep. Underneath this front flap is two poly-wrapped micro screens that will take you all of 25 seconds to pop out, walk to your sink, rinse them off, pat them dry, and put them back and close the lid. You have now done your cleaning. Okay? The only other thing, and as far as the outside unit, making sure that it is clear of snow, ice, sticks, pine leaves, or pine needles, stuff like that, leave the hell alone. Leave it alone. Okay? Everything else in here is sealed at the factory. And the one thing you do not want to do is go mucking around with factory seals. Okay? That's a no-no. Don't touch them. So if your machine is operating properly, leave it the hell alone. Okay? Now, same thing with your ducted system. Your ducted system operates with a regular garden variety furnace filter that you buy at the hardware store. Replace them a couple of times a year. That's it. You're done. Take a garden hose to your pump outside with a soft brush and get the crap and crud off it that fell out of the trees. If it's working, leave it alone.
That's great.
Okay? And there is no manufacturer out there, none, that requires anything more than that. You're going to get told there is, but there isn't. I mean, I've even challenged other reps. I said, show me that, please, in your warranty documents. Oh, well, it's not there. I said, right, because it's horseshit, because all you're doing is booking service. Okay, the reality is, are we gonna call and we gonna recommend servicing and cleaning to our clients? Absolutely. Sure, we're in business. But, do we recommend it every year? No, because it's not necessary. It just isn't. But that isn't gonna stop us calling the customer and say, would you like to have
Yeah,
your
the
system?
line of business.
Okay, now, there is a proper cleaning procedure for the heads. The heads can, over time, get pretty gunky. Okay, smoke, oil, cooking, what have you. And every once in a while, they need to get flushed properly. And that's gonna cost them about $150, and they come in and they bag it and they clean it.
Yeah.
And it's a good job. And every once in a while, it should be done. If your home is full of airborne crap, then by all means, it's something you should do regularly. But your outdoor pump, as long as it's free and clear of debris and snow and ice, leave it the hell alone.
And don't build anything around it.
These machines are designed to be outside.
They're air intake.
Okay, the only time I will even recommend a roof over it is if it's on the slope side of the roof and there is a fear of snow and ice crashing. That's the only time I'm gonna recommend it.
That's good to know.
If it's under an eave, I say leave it the hell alone. It's designed to be out there. Yeah, don't do it. It's pretty simple stuff.
So I'm just gonna go back a little bit. You mentioned, like, you said that there's technology out there for two heads that you can have heat on one and AC on the
Yeah,
other.
VFRs, that's
Yeah.
coming.
So with that being said, though, and I think I already know the answer to this one, but just for everybody else, how many heads can you run off one compressor?
The heads, I'm sorry, the compressors come from the factory with ports, gas ports, that will range between 1 and 5, depending upon the size of the pump. Okay, so for 9,000 BTU pumps or 12,000 BTU pumps, you will not find a machine on the marketplace that has more than one port. By the time you get to 18,000 BTU, there are a few out there that have 2 ports, which would mean 2 heads. Then you jump to 24,000, and there's the odd machine out there that has 3 ports. And as you go up in size, you typically can go up in port numbers, and that would allow you to connect that many heads. However, there's a big however on this. As you go up in size and as you increase the number of heads that are on a pump, the efficiency of that pump starts to wane a little bit. So you have to be very careful to make sure that you are not stressing that pump. So if I was putting in, say, a 48,000 BTU pump, I would probably be hesitant to go beyond installing 40,000 worth of heads. Okay, because I want to make sure that I can keep that pump within its sweet spot for operating. And the other component to this is I have to be careful about the length of the total lines connecting the heads to the pumps, because there is a limit as to how much gas that pump needs to operate properly in its sweet spot. And it's typically on the bigger pumps, somewhere around 150 to 200 running feet of gas line. Every manufacturer is slightly different. So that's one of the things we have to sort of look at in order to keep that operating properly. Okay. And thankfully, recently, in the past couple of years, there's been a few manufacturers that have finally come out with some smaller heads. Okay, it used to be the smallest head on the marketplace was typically what they call the 9,000 BTU head. And that's the head that was put in bedrooms and small rooms. Well, there's a few manufacturers that are actually coming out and have them now with 6,000 and 7,000 BTU heads. And they're really tiny. They're only like 27 inches long.
Good for like a
Perfect for bedrooms.
tiny home. Well, yeah, tiny home.
Yeah, yeah. But, these are quite often used in combinations, like we put them on an 18,000 BTU, say in a mini home, where we want to qualify for greener homes, $2,500. So we can very easily put an 18,000 BTU pump outside, slam a 12,000 in the living room, kitchen area, and then snake a 6,000 BTU in for the master bedroom without a whole lot more money. And now they're getting their whole home done, and Greener Home's gonna kick in $2,500.
Which I
Okay.
think is the caveat to greener homes, is that you have to have a whole home solution, or.
You do have to have a whole home solution to qualify for Greener Homes. So if you have a bungalow with a finished basement, then yes, you're gonna have to put a head on both levels. If you have a bungalow with an unfinished, uninsulated basement, then you can put two heads upstairs. Okay, it's just a function of playing the rules the way they lay it out. And yes, occasionally I get in some arguments with the efficiency people, but
What would you win?
I win most of the time because I don't start arguments I can't win deliberately.
Is there anything else that we should know? We're just coming up to 11 o'clock. And
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of time for everyone.
No,
But
that's,
does anybody on screen have any questions for Mike? Or Mike, is there anything we absolutely need to know before you let us go today?
I think you've got some basics. The real thing is just to understand that there's all kinds of choices out there. And there probably is going to be some form of grant or rebate that's going to play.
Nice. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Mike.
you're more than
Anybody
welcome.
online have any questions? Everybody okay?
I do have a quick one. So in the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned Greener Homes having a rebate of 2,500 to 5K, and then Efficiency Nova Scotia having 200 to 500 per ton, or BTUs. Is
Right.
that either or? Or is it both?
No, you're gonna qualify for both.
As long as
Oh,
you do your
okay.
As long as you do your home assessment.
Right,
I
okay.
should also mention, I didn't mention this before and I thought about it, but didn't say it. There is also a 0% interest-free loan available from Greener Homes for up to $40,000 for
Oh.
10 years. It is administered by CMHC. It is a royal pain to work with. But it is worthwhile. I probably have maybe 20 or 25 customers that have gone through it. But financing options absolutely exist.
Really?
Okay, great. Thank you.
That would be a really nice option for someone who maybe retired, who's looking to sell their home, who hasn't done these upgrades to their house.
Absolutely.
And they're preparing, like, they could make some major upgrades to their home and, get that top dollar value when they enter the market.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna take some time to get, but then,
Yep.
you can help them get the system.
Oh, yeah.
And get that top dollar in the market for
Oh, yeah.
almost,
Big time.
But they
almost
can't
no
have a loan
cost.
necessarily, huh?
Not when they
Sell the
sell,
property.
they'd have to actually pay that off before they sell.
Yeah, the
Do you guys
the lawyers take care of
With
that
the
on closing.
with the rebates and stuff?
Do you guys do financing options
Yes.
with your
Yeah.
installs and stuff?
Yeah.
And contact info, if you don't mind putting it on the Facebook page or wherever your contact information, so we can reach out with any questions you might have.
Sure.
on Business.
Sure.
Jen is gonna be
They know how to
texting
get a hold
you
of me.
every day, Mike. She's gonna have
Yeah, so what's
questions
your
for you
number?
every day.
Thank you very much.
All
Mike.
good.
Thank you, Mike.
Great presentation.